Welcome to Martini Time, the happy time of the day here in Blackstone, the center of the world. But then you too are the center of the world. So let's see what's in the news today. I get my ideas for my evening talk usually when I mix the martini. It's kind of like alchemy. I mix the martini like a priest, and the idea for the talk forms in my mind. And then I come in here and turn on my iPhone and talk to you about, I serve you my idea that came in the alchemy of the martini. Anyway, that's why I'm a martini priest. So, what's in the news? Just before I came in here, I was reading this little post by a quote by Pence. And I'm not reading this to dump on Pence or anything political, but it just connected the dots with what I was talking about last night when I talked about the Catholic Church. And this was reaffirmed when I was watching a British mystery last night. What I said was, and what I wanted to point out was that the grace flow in the Catholic Church, grace, healing grace, the power for salvation, flows through the sacraments of the church and not through the character of the priest. And I was watching a British mystery last night, and they had there was something about a priest, and the priest said, and the fellow asked the priest, that would the sacrament of confession and forgiveness work if you had killed somebody? And the priest said yes. The sacrament of forgiveness and salvation would work even if the priest had committed murder, you see. And that's why I connected it with Trump, who said even if I shot somebody on Fifth Avenue, people would still vote for me. Which is saying basically that the grace of power flows through the office of the president and not through the character of the president. So you see the connection? So if the president is a scoundrel, morally imperfect, black, or whatever, you see, the power still flows through the office. But of course, if it were a Democratic president, that wouldn't work. So let me read what Pence says, because I want to give Protestants an equal share. An equal share here. So Pence says, what American people need is not more health care. What we need is more Jesus care. I believe that we can just get more of these people with pre-existing health conditions back into the church. You would see a lot of healings. And many of these problems would just go away. People who lead godly lives don't worry about doctors. We have the Lord to take care of us. Well, that's good. And there's nothing wrong with that. Except for the couple who just went to jail because they didn't send their kid to the doctor and he died. They were letting the Lord take care of it. But anyway, that's an extreme case. But the point I wanted to make out was, and the title of this talk is God, Relationship or Union. Now these are the primary two opposite mythologies at work in Western civilization. I read a lot of Joseph Campbell. So the two great mythologies, and by mythologies, I mean the way we see reality. Not some Greek myth of gods shooting them, playing in the Mount Olympus. I'm talking about the way we perceive reality. And we're really unconscious of the frame, of the picture we see. It's kind of like we look at reality through maybe a rectangular frame, or maybe an oblong frame, or an oval frame. And we see reality as an oval or a rectangle or a triangle. We don't see the frame. Well, the frame is the mythology. Mythos, you see. People don't understand that, but I try and help. So the two ways of seeing reality in the Western civilization is through the lens of religion or through the lens of nature. Now, the lens of nature comes from the pagan culture of the hunt that was in Europe before Christianity came and laid over it, painted over it, the lens of the church. So when you look through the lens of the church, which Europe looked through, was the only lens they had through the Middle Ages. With the end of the Middle Ages, they got another lens to look through, science and nature. So now you had two. Look through the church or through nature. Science, reason, and faith. And these two lenses, you see, are on our eyes like this today. And so one minute you're looking through this eye, and the next minute you're looking through that. It's kind of like everybody's got a wall eye. One eye sees science and nature. The other eye sees church and God. It makes us neurotic. It makes us confused. You know, just like if you have wall eye. I have a wall eye when I look to the left. This eye looks up. So I'm seeing two of you. Which one do I choose to see when you have a walleye? Well, one becomes dominant, but the other one's kind of in the background. You just don't pay attention to it because you got to see one, or else you'll bump into doors. You know, you can't put two fingers together. So one eye will be dominant over the other. So some people have a dominant church eye, but the nature science eye is still in the background. And then we can use it if we need to. So if you go to a doctor, you're using the doctor eye, he's going to fix you through science. Or if you go to the church and get healed by prayer, you'll get fixed by magic, or God's magic, you see. And these two eyes are working simultaneously together. You go on Facebook and somebody says, oh, I got sick, and everybody says, oh, I'm praying for you. And then if you say, well, I got well, oh, God blessed you. My prayer worked. Or if you died, oh, well, maybe next time. But you can see these two lenses on our head at the same time. Some people, atheists, to hell with that lens. I'll just look through the nature lens, the science lens. Other people, the hell with nature and science and doctors, I'm just going to look through the God lens. And that was that couple that are going to jail because their kid died. They were just waiting for God to save him. They were doing right. They were following the directions. They were reading the recipe, you see. So you see how confused, but we can see this everywhere right now in our culture, and it's making us neurotic, you see. So what is the difference? The title of this talk then was God, Union, Relationship or Union. Well, the Christian religion in the West, including Judaism and Islam, the Abrahamic religions of the West, offer you relationship with God. Go back to Genesis, just to make it simple. Yahweh is separate from creation. He's like a potter who makes a pot, but he's separate from the pot. And you're the pot. He made you. So if you want to get in relationship to Yahweh, you've got to get in relationship to your Creator as a thing, as a piece of pottery, getting into relationship with the potter. It's a relationship of two things that are entirely different. So in the West then, where do you find the potter? Where do you find the boss? Well, you go to church. In the Catholic Church, it's through the sacraments. In the Protestant religion, it's through the social body. In the Protestant religion, church is a social body. Has a minister, has a doctrine that holds that particular denomination together, but it's a social club. It's the chosen people. It's like the Old Testament. The chosen people have a covenant with God. So you join a church, it's the chosen people. You choose it. They choose you. Come on in. Oh, yes. You feel so good. You're home. And now you have a relationship with God. And grace and healing will flow through you. So all you got to do is go to church. Obey the commandments. Listen to the sermon. Obey the commandments as it's taught to you through church. You see, be loving to your members of church. Don't worry about the people outside. Just inside, you see. And that way you'll be in relationship with God. And you'll be healthy and happy. And you won't have to worry about doctors. You'll be living the true life, you see. But then on the other hand, with the other half of Western culture that comes out of European pagan, which is follow your nature, the Knights of the Round Table, the heroic individual. The heroic individual comes out of the pagan mythology of Europe. The knight on shining armor, the warrior, the knight, you see. Who is he obedient to? He's obedient to his inner nature. He thinks outside the box. He is like Indiana Jones. He is an action hero in our movies. He depends on his inner nature, his intuition. He doesn't read the Bible. In obedience, you see, he's an independent unique individual who relies on his own heart, his own courage. He follows his own dream. He follows his own bliss, says Joseph Campbell. He goes into the forest where no one else has gone. He creates his own path. That's the American dream. That's not the biblical dream, where you surrender and just obey God's word and you don't dare doubt, you see. The heroic hero doubts. He questions. So these two mythologies are side by side and they get us all screwed up. Who do I obey? My conscience or my political party? Who do I obey? My church, who says vote Republican or Democrat or whatever the church says, or whatever the doctrine is, which is the doctrine or beliefs of my social organization, you see. It's the belief and the doctrine and the dogma of my social group, which is my hometown, my group, my culture, you see. So relationship with God, then, basically is relationship with my particular culture and what my culture believes. Its prejudices and its bigotry and all of that, you see. Oh, I believe that. I don't question that. It's just the way things are, you see. Or do I question it? Well, if I question it, where does that questioning come from if it's from outside the church, you see? So these two juxtaposition of lenses, you see, are everywhere, and it creates neurosis, panic, breakdown, chaos. It also creates heroic individuals. It also creates the individual who dares to stand up and speak his word, who dares to challenge authority, who dares to follow his inner voice no matter where it takes him, you see. And that is an individual that is in opposition to the obedient religious individual who obeys God, the Father, you see. So the problem is, where is God? Is God in the church? Or is God in your nature? Does God dwell within you as you? Or is he up there in heaven, the access to God through the church, you see? So that's the question now. If you're serious about this, where is God? Does God dwell within you? Or does he live in church on Sunday? And so the only access to God is if you go to church and that, you see. So that's a good question. Thanks for dropping in.